Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Arsenal Fan Circle. It is the Thursday night forum, and just like Arsenal, I thought we would start to get back into things after a couple of weeks off. I've been back to Ireland. I've been back to Ireland the last 2 weeks, so I just escaped. Well, not escaped Ireland, but I know it's snowing back in Dublin right now, so I've just escaped the bad weather. I hope everybody is doing well leading up to these festive weeks and getting all the shopping done and all that good stuff. So yeah, just like Arsenal, we're gonna get back into the swing of things. We're a little bit rusty, but I thought we'd get together and have a little chat about Gabriel Jesus. A short show, right, Stan?
Yeah, I just thought we'd have a little chat about what's going on as we've got something to talk about. And welcome to those that are joining us. I see Gary's popped in and BX Gunner.
Yeah, welcome to the show, BX Gunner and Gary, as always, always being here as well. Evening, Gary, and looking like the Iceman. LOL, that's me. So how have you been in the last couple of weeks, Stan?
Yeah, I've been good. I'm not really into international football that much, so I haven't been watching any of the World Cup. I usually dip in at around about quarterfinals, semi-finals, and I'm probably going to. Well, I will watch the match on Saturday, which is England France, as we get to the sharp end. But I've been keeping in touch with the scores and watching what's been going on. And I've noticed that some of the bigger teams have gone out already. I think Spain has gone out now. I think Belgium has gone out. Germany's gone out. And you got teams like Morocco, which are doing quite well. So yeah, I'm going to be dipping back into the World Cup this weekend.
Yeah, and there's probably another 10 days until the final comes. I think next weekend. So yeah, exciting times. And for me personally, it's about Arsenal. It's all about Arsenal for me. We left off November 12th with a great performance against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and finishing in great style, Stan. And we still have to sort of pinch ourselves 5 points ahead of Manchester City.
Well, we couldn't be in a better position. So it's quite unfortunate that one of the linchpins of the team is going to be out now for 3 months. I think Gabriel's going to have a knee surgery. So I mean, everything was just going so well, but I mean, it's this is all what's happened to us now has been in the back of my mind for quite a long time,
Hmm.
and for me, this goes all the way back to when we sold both Aubameyang and then finally Lacazette left, and we only brought one in. And I always felt, and I've said it on this broadcast and to you as well when we've spoken, that I've always felt that we've been a little bit shortchanged there by only bringing in one and
Hmm.
not somebody else. And it was only a matter of time, I felt, before that we were going to get into a situation where we would only be able to draw from Eddie and Ketia. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But no matter what you think of Eddie and Ketia, whether you think he's up to the job or not, it was never just about him as an individual for me. I think it was more about the depth, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So, this is a problem that for me it's just been waiting in the wings and now it's come to fruition. So it's going to be interesting to see how we go about fixing this problem because it's a major problem, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Welcome to Stefan and Don Juan as well for joining us. Listen, if you're a little bit starved of Arsenal content, this is the place to be right now, this evening, this morning, wherever you are. If you're watching us live or if you're catching up on playback and just realizing the Arsenal fan circle is starting to creep back into motion here. So, Stefan said, be funny if England won it, just to piss Blatter off and his dodgy cohorts. Uh, BX kind of says, I sincerely hope Nketiah goes to work for us. Let's start with Nketiah. Do you want to start there, and then where do you want to go with this then?
Well, the first thing that I noticed when the news came out was on social media. There were a lot of people discussing the situation and trying to find a solution within the squad that didn't seem to involve Eddie and Ketia. So I was seeing things about Martinelli can play through the middle, and ESR is coming back, and apparently Mikel Arteta said that he can play in that position. And the first thing that jumped into my mind is that we've just given Eddie and Ketia a brand new increased contract for 5 years, and we're paying him very, very good money. It's kind of first team money, if you will. That sort of money would get you into the first team all over the continent. And we've
Yeah.
given him a shirt number of his choice. So we can't just hide him away. We've got this problem, and Eddie now has to be front and center. It's time for us to find out, in my eyes, whether the investment that we've made in Eddie and Ketia is going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, and look, what I always say is when you go into the transfer market and you bring players in, and even if you don't bring players in, but you invest money and resources into providing the contract and upgrading the contract to keep Eddie Nketiah because he was a free agent at one point in time, you have to have a lot of luck in terms of the incomings you're going to have. You have to have a lot of luck in terms of the players you're promoting, giving those contracts to, that they'll be able to step up to the plate. I feel Arsenal have done very well in the last couple of seasons, reinvigorating the first team. Let's not forget the players that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years and the level that they've been playing at. And it's particularly in the last 2 summers, Dan, we've gone out and be able to reinvigorate the squad with a lot of young, hungry players. And, Eddie, we've gambled also on Eddie and Nketiah being one of those. He's young, right? But do you see a hunger inside of him? You know what I mean?
I, I've I've always felt that increasing Eddie's contract, and this is just my own personal opinion, was a lazy and convenient move by the club, and it's a move that I've seen them do before. Instead of moving a player on, they will just increase his contract because it's easier to wave that under a player's nose who's already in the squad than do the hard work of moving that player on and then going out and find a replacement. And I felt that was a little bit of what we've done there with Eddie. So he's been asking for minutes. We've given him this contract. He's had a lot of minutes coming off the bench. We have to start him, in my eyes, but it's still not going to be enough. So then the question is, do we bring back Balogun as a backup to Eddie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or do we leave Balogun in situ on loan, where he's doing very well, and we go into the market and bring in another striker to help Eddie?
Yeah. Don Juan said, out of all the players around the world that could have got injured, and it happened to our talisman up front. Honestly, Arsenal have some seriously bad luck. Yeah, I'm going to get to that Balogun point very soon. I do miss the Premier League and the SPL, says Stefan. And Gary said, Eddie wanted minutes. He will get it. 3 games in 8 days when the Premier League returns. BX said, Eddie is 24 now and will be 25 next year. Wow. It's time to step up and shape his career is right now in the next 3 months.
But he can't do it on his own though. He's not going to be able to play every single minute until Gabriel is back and fit and ready to start games. So I mean, if you look at most games, the striker will come off maybe 60, 70 minutes in preparation for the next game, and somebody else will come on. So that's going to have to be taken into account. Now, the good thing is that we do have ESR coming back, which would be like a new signing. But I still think that we need to go into the market and bring in another forward rather than jiggery pokery and hoping that ESR comes back fully fit and we can then play with Martinelli in that position, which I know a lot of people seem to think is the way forward, but I don't.
Don Juan can't see Arsenal bringing in anyone in January, to be honest. We're going to get into that. I think we're going to bring a couple of players, Don Juan. Traditionally has not been our style, but I think the club is moving a little bit differently, particularly in the last 20 months.
Well, traditionally, the season's been over, right? There's been really nothing to fight for, so there's no point at times, spunking your load in January when you can wait to the summer. But this season is very unique for us. We're in the driving seat now, and I think that the club has backed Mikel Arteta, and I would be extremely surprised that if the owners aren't looking at this situation now, it's obvious to me that Mikel and Edu must have already spoken to the ownership about the situation. I can't see them saying anything other than go ahead.
And we have seen them recently at the LA Rams game the last weekend. So they have been stateside in the last few days. Edu in situ with wife and family. Arteta also being there, and they're not just going there to take in a game. They're going there to talk about their positioning and what they're going to do in the transfer market, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. Gary said not bringing anyone in January would be disappointing. There are players they could bring in to strengthen the squad. Why not take advantage of our position? Definitely, I think so. Let's handle Balogun, Stan. To halt the development of the player, to maybe sit on the bench and get minimal minutes, is that something we should do? I don't think we should do it in terms of Florian Balogun.
If we did bring him back, he's going to get minutes because, as I mentioned, Eddie can't do it all. He can't play every minute of every game that's left to the end of the season. So he would get minutes in this Arsenal squad. I mean, I'm a little bit torn. There's a part of me that says no, we leave him where he is because he's doing very well there. But this is a kind of break glass in an emergency situation. And I seem to remember us under Arsene Wenger doing something similar with Francis Coquelin and bringing him back he was on loan at Charlton, I think it was, and we brought him back. And very soon, he managed to get himself into a position where he was one of the first names on the team sheet, wasn't he? Playing next to Santi Cazorla. Do you remember how that worked out?
Yes.
Well, that was one that we recalled from loan, and a player that I think a lot of people thought was coming to the end of his Arsenal time. He wasn't on loan to develop. He was on loan, I think, to be in the shop window, which is completely different to Balogun. So there is a part of me that feels, well, he can come back, he will get minutes, and it will be a way for him to start getting to know his teammates in the rhythm of how we play. But there is another part of me that thinks that we should leave him where he is because I don't think Eddie Nketiah has enough experience to be a mentor to Balogun. Do you see what I mean?
The question here, Stan, would be, is if you believe the club was always going to do something let's say in the forward positions, maybe not as a number 9 or a striking position, but in the forward positions. My belief is that the club was preparing to maybe go for a wide forward, and Mudryk is the Ukrainian, the next Ukrainian David Beckham, as it were, has been lined up, hopefully.
But do you think that's really the way to go? I mean, if you look at some of the other names that we've been linked to, for example, if you look at a Cody Gakpo, he's got a little bit more versatility to his game, whereas Mudryk, who I know very little about, and I've never watched him play for Shakhtar Donetsk because I don't watch the Turkish league, so I don't know very much about him. But from what I gather, his position is very much on the left-hand side.
Yes,
which that's the side that we seem to be okay on. It's the other side. Yeah. So somebody like a Cody Gakpo could be flexible on either flank, and he can play through the middle. So that when a Gabriel does come back, he's not going to be redundant because there's other places where he can play. And another player that I've been looking at, that I really like, he's 25 years old, and he's playing for Mönchengladbach, and it's Marcus Thuram, the son of Lilian Thuram.
Lilian, okay.
He can play anywhere across the middle. I mean, this season alone, in 15 matches, he's scored 10 goals and got 3 assists.
Gary would be afraid to move Martinelli from the left wing centrally, would weaken 2 positions. And
I agree.
It's also unique because after World Cup as well, Stan, I was thinking along the same lines as BX. It's unique in terms of we have a World Cup that's going to finish, and traditionally the transfer market heats up in the summertime after the World Cup is finished.
I think it's going to be a very different transfer window for January. You're probably going to see a lot of players that have got contracts coming to the end in the summer, maybe leaving a little bit early for the right price. Um, it's always an opportunity for players to inflate, what their worth is and put themselves back into the eye of other managers. So I think that there is going to be a lot of movement this January, unlike the Januaries that we've had in the past.
Gary Billy's Balogun is ready. He needs more seasoning, just like Saliba. Let it be. BX says, get Chavez and Rebic, cheaper, good options. So yeah, that's what's going on in the chat room, and thanks for chiming in as well. Okay, so Gabriel Jesus, the injury happened, and he got what he wanted. He got into the World Cup squad, got what he wanted, and unfortunately, he's got injured. It's going to be 3 months now. We know, Stan, and he came back Monday. He had the surgery on Monday, and so he's going to absorb these next 3 weeks into his rehab. 3 weeks where there's not going to be a ball kicked in anger. So basically, we're looking toward the beginning of March before we're going to see Gabriel Jesus back.
So basically, near the end of the season, isn't it? When does the season finish this year? End of April, was it? May?
Into May. Into May, for sure.
And he's not going to be able to come back and play, straight away. He's going to have to be eased back into the action.
Yeah.
So
I was looking at how many games up until the 1st of March. It's going to be 10 league games that we're going to miss Gabriel Jesus for.
That's a hefty chunk.
This is a player that, okay, he hasn't scored many, many goals for Arsenal, but that's what rival fans will point to, Stan. He hasn't scored but 5 goals for Arsenal, but he's been very impactful. I think he's had 6 assists. So in 14 games, he's had 11 involvements in matches.
It's funny how fans of other teams are quick to point that out about Gabriel Jesus. Yet when it was Bobby Firmino at Liverpool doing it, everybody could understand that, and that was taken into account. And his lower goal tally wasn't ridiculed because people could see what he was doing for the team. So people have short memories. It's not like he's not scoring and not doing anything else. Like Lacazette was a little bit like that, right? He's quite integral to this team, and I think he's going to be a voice that's going to be missed in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, I mean, using crutches and in a cast, he's not going to be able to play, but he can be around. He will be around the training grounds. He will be around his teammates on match day, and he will be able to impart some, much needed nous or information to especially Eddie Nketiah. But of course, as Arsenal fans, we have seen the effect that Gabriel Jesus has had on the team. He does a lot more than tracking back. He does a lot more than graft up front. He's all over the field, and he's involved in winning the ball back. So it's kind of immeasurable what he gives us on the field.
Yeah, he's very he's integral to all the good things that we do. He's forming good partnerships. He's got a good. I think a lot of players look to him for his experience. So it is a big loss, but it is what it is. We have to continue with what we're doing. We have to somehow be able to continue to power through.
Don Juan is correct. We may not see Jesus firing on all cylinders until April or May, and that'll be pretty much the final 10 games of the season, the run-in. Combine that with Emile Smith-Rowe, we have to treat these two players as, like new signings when they do come back, and hope that they're going to fire again and help the team and get back to the way they were playing. Because Emile Smith-Rowe was arguably one of our best players last season.
Yeah, he bangs in the goals.
Yeah.
It's a very good option that you can bring off the bench, and he doesn't come off the bench to just make up the numbers. He comes off the bench and is quite damaging. So that's something that I hope he's going to continue to replicate when he comes back. Big time.
Beck Skinner said, I'm pretty sure there's players that would join Arsenal based on league position and position vacancies. Could see a January move at a good chance of silverware.
We're attractive again.
We're a different proposition now, Stan.
very attractive. You know, people, especially younger players, they can see what's going on at Arsenal. They see the makeup of the squad. They see that the manager doesn't tolerate passengers. He gets rid of them. If anybody doesn't want to, play the game and follow the rules, he gets rid of them, and players get their opportunities. So we are an attractive proposition, and the seasons. We've gone through quite a chunk of the season, so we can just get a couple more in to help finish off the job.
Bix kind of goes on to say it's the way Jesus holds the ball. He's very strong physically. He's adapted his game to our way of playing, and we've probably adapted the way we play toward him as well. It's going to be hard to find. You can't find a like for like player out there, Stan. So we're going to have to look for the best. Maybe, I don't know, we're going to have to adapt to the player we can get, first of all. I don't think we'd be. It's so difficult in January to get the players that you want.
There are a lot of players though that that have contracts coming up in the summer that you might be able to prize away from the club in January if you make the right offer. The only thing is that everybody is probably aware of the positions that we're looking to fill. So prices are going to be quoted to us accordingly a little bit.
Yeah. Don Juan goes on to say, I remember when Arsenal were 7 points clear with 9 games left. Then the Eduardo injury happened. This keeps happening to us. We live to dream only for injuries to kill our season. Yeah. I want to go on and talk about a little bit about the style of play that we have as well. Stefan says, now is the perfect opportunity for Arsenal to reinforce with some decent acquisitions, considering the league position. Definitely. ESR would be chopped down and Jesus role. That's a very real point as well. If you put a Martinelli in there or Emile Smith-Rowe in a false 9 position, physically they may not be able to stand up to that. Center backs, center halves, they just want to go and clatter into the back of a player.
Well, someone's got to play there.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean? Someone's got to play. We can't put 10 men out. Someone's got to play in that position. You know what I mean? It all depends on how you play. But as the comment that you put up a moment ago about Gabriel Jesus holding onto the ball, he does that. And when you have players that hold onto the ball, they draw a lot of tackles and challenges just because they've got the ball. Jack Wilshere was the same. Jack Wilshere was always getting little nicks around his ankles and that because he holds onto the ball a long time. This is why I was saying that for me, it was only a matter of time before Jesus was going to be out for a while, because players that play in that way, they draw challenges.
Yeah. I suppose the 2 positions we've been worrying about, Stan, has been Thomas Partey. And, we have some players arguably who can fill in that position. But in those being, El Neni and Lokonga. And we've talked about that. But basically, the other position we were always afraid of was Gabriel Jesus, because the drop-off from Gabriel Jesus to Eddie Nketiah has been this season quite large.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not like one's scoring bags of goals and the other one isn't. They're both not really scoring a lot of goals. And the way that we seem to play is that the forward position is helping to bring other players into play. And I didn't see the friendly that we played. I think was it in the last day or so.
Leon.
But I hear that Eddie Nketiah, was working extremely hard. He scored a goal and looked like a player that's up for the fight, which is what you want. I was listening to Chronicles of a Gooner, and Harry was talking a little bit about that, and he said he spent a lot of time watching Eddie Nketiah, and he looked like somebody that's up for the, he knows that it's now his time. This is a player that's been asking for minutes. He's going to get as many minutes now as he wants. He's going to be getting minutes.
Yeah.
So it's up to him now to do something to show all of us that he's been worth the investment.
Yeah.
Because my biggest fear is if he comes in now for a long spell, even if we bring in another player that helps him out, but he's still going to get a lot of minutes, and he doesn't impress or flatter, how are we going to move him on? Who's going to take Eddie Nketiah and pay him what we're paying him?
Yeah, well,
You know what I mean? I worry that we could end up painting ourselves into a corner a little bit there.
yeah, I don't think we're going to move on Eddie in the next couple of seasons. I think he's going to be at the club. Now it's up to him whether he's going to be the second striker or possibly a third striker at the club, and that's dependent on this audition coming up now. Last season, Eddie and Nketiah talked about on that podcast. If he gets a run of games where he plays 90 minutes, he will come through and he will score goals. Last season in 8 games, he scored 5 goals. 2 games he scored braces in, um, and he got an extra goal somewhere. Um, but the situation this season, Stan, has been he's been getting 10, 15, 20 minutes here and there. And the player will say he hasn't been able to get into a flow, I'm sure.
But it's also the way. I mean, he's not the only player that's been on the fringes of a squad, and then he's given minutes as a substitute, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and those players. That's now it's up to you to make your manager have a difficult choice.
Yeah.
And I've seen other players do it. So for me, that's a little bit of an excuse about the 90 minutes. However, that excuse is now going to come to an end because he's now going to get his wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what's it going to be? What's it going to be after that? The wind wasn't blowing in the right direction.
No.
Yeah. The grass was too long. The grass was too short.
Yeah, I'm not making excuses at all.
No, not from yourself, but I mean from his side of things.
Yeah.
You know, the club has done everything to make Eddie feel a part of the squad. He's on big boy wages. He's got a big boy squad number. He has been getting a lot of minutes. There's been times when we brought him on and kept Gabriel on. We've not done a like for like. We've moved it around and we've had them both on the pitch at times.
Yeah.
So, for me, I think I've seen enough of Eddie. Personally, I don't think he's good enough to be Arsenal's number 9. I just don't. I love the lads, and I'd nothing I would want more than to have one of our own from the academy leading the line. I don't think Eddie is the one. But now there is no hiding place, and I don't want Eddie to be hidden away. I want him to be front and center, and I want to be proved wrong.
Do you think he suffers a little bit with pressure, Stan? Last season, when he scored those 5 goals in 8 games, we were out of it. We'd lost 3 games. The first one being Crystal Palace, then we lost to Brighton, and we lost the 3rd game in a row to Southampton. Not sure about the sequence, but we'd lost 3 games. Eddie came in in the Southampton game, got 90 minutes, and then he scored 5 goals in 8 games, basically with the pressure being off because we were out of it after those 3 defeats.
But when would you, if you was in his place, right? How would you prefer to be coming into the squad? Would you prefer it that you're the backup, the main guy gets nobbled, you get called in, and we're in a relegation battle, or would you rather it's your time to get called upon? We're sitting top of the league. Your team is sitting top of the league. Everything's going well. You've got good players around you. Surely that's the environment, the better environment to come in and do your thing. I mean, he couldn't have it any better.
Yeah, you could actually argue, and you are arguing, and I agree with you, that this season he's in a better spot when he's going to come in.
Of course.
December 26th, when we go, I think it's away to West Ham. Or maybe we're at home to West Ham. So it's even better, right? It's even better for Eddie Nketiah. He's coming into a team that's well oiled and well greased, and the way Arteta has this team playing now, Arteta ball at its finest. We are making one change here. Gabriel Jesus is injured. Eddie Nketiah is coming in, and he's going to get the benefit of chances that are going to be engineered for him.
And that's the thing as well. Eddie does get chances. Our forwards now get chances. And I always think that the chances is the hardest part. I think the putting it away bit is easier. You know, if you're running, if you've been put through and the ball's come over the top and you've managed to control it in the air and bring it down onto the ground with a really nice touch and then flick it off and get away from the opposition, and it's you and the keeper, you've done the hard part for me. The hard part was controlling the ball and bringing it out of the air and getting past. Now you've just got to score. And I think that the problem for me is with Eddie is that I see him so many times do that hard part and then fluff it right at the end.
Mhm.
So if it's a confidence thing, we're going to see now, and
I,
I'm going to be watching this really carefully and
yeah,
counting the
me too.
chances that he gets and the ones that he puts away and the ones that he doesn't.
But listen, you know me, I'm an eternal optimist, right? So like you,
You are.
I want him to do well. Here's another factor in it. Here's another point in his factor. He's not looking over his shoulder. Gabriel Jesus is not coming in if he doesn't play well. So he doesn't have that added pressure of needing to be the man. Of course, we need him to be the man, but Gabriel Jesus is not going to sit on the bench for the next 3 months
No.
waiting to come on if he's had a bad game. This should elevate Eddie's game, in my opinion. And you're right, we're going to be watching this space. Um, we want something at pace of like 5 goals every 8 games, 5 goals every 10 games, something like that. And we're going to be watching. And I think we've called out
And as
Eddie.
BX said as well, assists are very important. You know, if
Mhm,
he's
exactly.
if he's putting a lot of people through and causing a lot of goals as well, then again, happy days.
We are going to be watching. The table is set for him now. He's playing. He's going to be playing in a really good team, a team that's top of the league, 5 points clear. The chances will be engineered for him. He's not going to have the competition behind him, and maybe that's been something that slowed him up this season because he has not performed the way we would have expected, even in the Europa League. Just 2 goals in the Europa League to his name. So we're going to watch this space, Eddie, and we do hope that you flourish.
But let me ask you a question here, though, right?
Yep.
If we're gonna hand the keys right to Eddie, which I think is the
Well,
right
we
thing to
have to
do,
for
yeah,
3 or 4 games, right?
yeah. This is what we have to do. Is
Hmm.
do you want because he can't play every minute of every game. He just can't. Players can't, right? At some point, you've got to take him off at 65 minutes when he's breathing out of his arse and do something else. When in those situations, do you want the person that's going to be taking his place in the team to be somebody that we already have from within? Or do you still want us to go and have someone else? You know, a player that can play in that position. It could maybe play in other positions as well. I think that's the way to go. We still are
This
going to
is,
have to buy someone, I think.
yeah, this is going to be key to our season, I think, how we address this transfer window in the light of Gabriel Jesus. Um, it's really, for me, it's a gamble what we're going to get from Eddie and Kedia. So I would like,
Even before the injury to Gabriel, I think we still needed to go into this market.
yeah,
So for me, this is just reinforce that. It may just mean that whatever what we were looking at may change.
yeah, for me, Gabriel Jesus getting injured is something we didn't want, but it's also something that we were and should have been planning for in terms of adding that depth, either behind Gabriel Jesus or ahead of him, in terms of this window. We all have looked at our squad and now known the striking position is a position that's not very strong in
No.
terms of depth. Midfield, possibly one as well that we needed to do. We lose Thomas Partey. We're not the same team as we have been. So this is no surprise to the club. The club is not blindsided by what happens with Gabriel Jesus, and there can be no excuses come January that we haven't actually planned uh, for these contingencies. You know what I mean?
So, and I'll ask everybody out there in the chat box as well, who should we be looking at?
Yeah. And
And we
I'll
have to,
catch up.
and we've got to be realistic about this, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Um,
mean? So don't be saying
while
CR7.
while everyone is putting in their nominations for who should be looking at, we'll get through some comments, and there might be some things in here in the chat box as well. Rebic from Milan, he's big, mobile, can score a variety of goals, and on the bench, he missed the World Cup and can come in and score. Chavez from Mexico is a free scoring midfielder, free kick specialist, and can play as a second striker.
What
We
does that
have
Chavez play? Does he play in the MLS? No,
But
Chavez.
it's no BX. Zaha is still there. Wilfred Zaha, interesting. Stan, probably we wouldn't have thought about him if Gabriel Jesus is still fit right now. It would have been one of those ships sailing and passes in the night.
See,
But Arsenal fan, you know,
this is another thing though, where we spend our money. I think we need to be spending our money on players, especially now in light of the Jesus injury. We want to be spending our money on players that when Jesus comes back, those players are no longer, those players are then obsolete. No stopgap players,
yeah.
players that can help us in the absence of Gabriel Jesus, but then still have a part to play upon his return. Do you know what I mean?
And let me say as well, I think the club and Arteta have said we're not going to go get a player just for the sake of it. It's going to be a player that we is going to raise our levels, is going to raise our depth, and
Yeah.
close up our first 11 and squad depth to be closer together in strength rather than, a player we want to get rid of in 12 months from now. Eddie should have played for Ghana, says BX. Don Juan, Eddie's strength. He's good on the left wing. He has pace and he's good at pressing. Eddie's weaknesses. He can't hold up the ball to bring others into play. I've also seen him miss loads of sitters.
Is he good on the left wing though? To me, it surprises me that when we bring on Gabriel and bring on Eddie and keep Gabriel on, that we don't move Gabriel onto a flank and put Eddie in the middle, because I think Gabriel is a player that can produce in both positions. He's useful to you in both positions, whereas Eddie's better in one position and not very good in the other. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and the key part for that is he can't hold up the ball. He can't play the way Gabriel Jesus plays in terms of that physicality. When you want to relieve pressure, you want to get the ball up to your striker, and you want your striker to hold on to that ball and bring others into the game. Gabriel Jesus can do that, Stan, but I don't think Eddie Nketiah is that type of player. So we're going to probably need to modify our game in terms of Eddie's got to be that fox in the box for us and sniffing out those chances. Remember those goals against Wolverhampton Wanderers that I talked about at the beginning? He's got to be Erdegaard getting in there on the end of those things. And those
See, the thing is, he just said, as you said earlier, he's 24, right? He's going to be turning 25. Why is it when I speak about Eddie Nketiah, I still feel like I'm talking about someone who's 19, 20?
22. Yeah.
Did you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's been at Arsenal for a long time. He's not just come up from the academy. He's not just, this isn't just his first season now, flirting in and around the first squad. He's been in and around the first squad for a long time. And somebody said in the chat earlier, someone else said in the chat earlier, I think it may have been Don Juan, who said, Eddie's really spent time playing with the B team. Let's see what he's like with the A team. And I'd have to disagree with that, because especially this season and last season, when he's been coming off the bench, he's been playing with the big boys.
Yeah,
he's been coming off the bench and playing in the team with all of our good players.
The majority of his minutes have been with the B team.
From the start.
Yeah.
From the start. But the games that he's come off the bench, and I think he's, so far this season, I think he's featured in every league game at some point. Some more minutes than others. There was a couple of games where he basically had 35 minutes. Which is basically, that's nearer a half of a game than it is not. So, but as I said, no more hiding places.
Exactly.
We're going to see now. Everything is set up for him. If he's a Goldilocks player, right, the porridge is now just right. It ain't too hot.
Yeah.
He's not fighting a relegation, and it's not too cold. Got no one looking over his shoulder. He's got everything that he needs to show us, his family, the footballing gods, Gareth Southgate, whoever it might be, that he has got it about him. It's now his time. He's not 19, 20 years old anymore. He's like proper 25 years old, mate. Do you know what I mean? And in footballing years, he's almost done.
I want to be clear. I don't think we're bashing him yet. You know what I mean, Stan? We're saying right now he's got a great opportunity that he should be.
Yeah, I'm not bashing him.
He should be rubbing his hands together.
I'm saying I don't want to see us go straight out into the market. We buy someone else. Eddie's still in the background, and we're playing this other guy, because then that says to me, why did we do what we did with Eddie? you see what I'm getting at? Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've given him assurances that he's the backup. He's to Gabriel Jesus. Now we've got to find out. I would rather find out, and it's like, nah, he definitely can't do it. Than leaving any more question marks.
And
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, you always have to plan for injuries. Injuries are going to happen. You're going to have to be the luckiest team. Not picking on Liverpool, but they had a number of members when they won the league a few years back. They had 7 players, I think, played 35, 36 games in the league for them. 7 players. That's the nucleus of a first 11 right there. So that's the kind of luck that you're going to need.
I also like this comment by BX as well. He says Jesus is a year older than Eddie and seems like a grown man, whereas Eddie seems like more like a child.
Yeah.
And he's right. There's only maybe 8 months between them, something like that, 9 months or so, maybe. Yeah. And there does seem in their maturity, there does seem a vast difference. Is that because Jesus has already had opportunities at international level? Is that because Jesus has won leagues already at Man City and won stuff?
It has been.
I don't know.
Jesus has been with a better team, Manchester City, in the last 5-6 years.
But he's right, though. I get what he's saying. You know, I like I said a few moments ago, when I talk about Eddie, sometimes I have to keep reminding myself that he's not just come up from the academy and he's like a young 19, 20-year-old player.
Yeah,
he's done that.
Let's see what Eddie can do with the A team. Like we said, he's been playing with the B team mostly. Who knows? He might be a revelation. I know you've been saying this, Stan, as well. Our team now, our first 11, can afford to plug one B team player in there.
Yeah, with the other maybe two
at most, without any kind of pretty seamlessly, without any hiccups. Stefan said, can't be missing sitters when you're challenging for a league. Suddenly got to take a back seat.
Yeah.
When you look at our team and our squad, you wouldn't say we are league winners. You wouldn't say our squad's full of a team that could win the league. A 20, you know what I mean? 18, 20 men. You could say 11.
Because they haven't done it, right?
They haven't done it.
Because they haven't. Do you know what I mean? We've only got a couple of players in our squad that have won the league in the UK, and they both came from Man City, right?
So what we're looking for is Arsenal to do something unique here, and Eddie to step up and be that player, like a new signing, like a January signing, and start hitting the octane, hitting the gas, and just scoring 5 goals every 8 games.
Yeah.
So I mean, Eddie's got a big job on his hands.
I can't wait. He should be relishing it. He should be like at fucking last. This is what I've been waiting for. And once I get into that position, the manager's going to find it hard to leave me out. You wait and see. That's what I want. Don't get me wrong. If he comes in and starts hitting it, I'm not going to be sat here. I want everyone who's listening to this who may not really know me or whatever. I'm not going to be sitting here doing a league gunner going, oh fuck, oh bollocks, he's doing really well. Oh no, even though I might say that I don't think Eddie's good enough, there is nothing that would make me more happier than he came in and started smashing it. Because you know what, that would mean that we've got a good chance of winning the league.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a great story for Eddie? Like that would be a great fairy tale story. Almost on his way out of the club. He's been there a while. He's one of our own. And then he comes in and he finds his groove. And he starts banging them away. And it's almost like Gabriel who? There's nothing that would make me happier.
Yeah. There would be quite a few stories. If that would happen, Stan, it would not just be Eddie and Nketiah. It would be a certain Swiss midfielder.
He done it.
His redemption will have come full circle. No, fully pun intended, I guess. Obviously, Arsenal got to acquire someone else. It's a squad game. Yes, Stefan, I agree with you. We do have to acquire someone else. That's notwithstanding.
Going to get
up as well, right?
I like that. I was going to get a beer. Keep talking.
Got it in there. Yeah. So, notwithstanding, Eddie can do his job. The club can go out in the January window and get Mudryk, a player for 40, 45 million. I'm not interested in a player. I think João Felix from Portugal. They're talking about João Felix for 130, maybe 100 million. I'm not interested in a player like that. That is wasted money, in my opinion.
I like João Felix. He's got great hair. fucking
He
brilliant
has
hair.
grey hair, but he needs to
But
score goals, Stan.
I don't think I don't see João Felix as €100 million or
No,
£100 million player. I always felt that when he went to Atletico Madrid, how much did they buy him for? Did they buy him for like 140 million?
I
And
do
I
not.
remember thinking that at the time, like, really?
Mhm.
I don't see that he's gonna give them what you would think a player of that kind of, the way that they play and that. I never saw it.
Yeah,
I never thought that. Yeah, you wait and watch. João Felix is going to tear it up at Atletico Madrid. I always thought it was a bad marriage. The way that they play and the sort of player that he is. I
I'm
like
just.
him.
I
I
think
I
he's
was
lightweight. I think he's lightweight as well. I don't
a,
think he's a player that could be physically strong
a bit Ozil.
up front. A little bit like that. BX said, considering Arteta has already had a meeting with the owners last week, I'm hoping there's transfer targets lined up ready to pounce come January 1. We're in no position to let the window wind down. We can't get to the 31st of January.
Here's the thing, right? As Don once said, João Felix, he's not like a prolific goal scorer, but I could see him really linking up and helping players like Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli,
Yeah,
like in the way that Jesus does.
yeah.
And I could still see him chipping in with some goals as well. But he's not. If they want 100 million, no way. I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, I'm no guru when it comes to for fucking pricing players. All I know is FIFA and fucking Football Manager. But from what you see players moving for, you're looking at what, maybe 55 million?
Yeah, and I don't think the club has.
Somewhere around there.
I don't think the club has a lot of money to spend as well. I think there's some room there for a Mudryk and another player. I think we're going to get two.
Jesus cost us 45, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
why would what has João Felix done to make us think that he should be paid?
Coming to
You
the
should pay a
English
lot
league,
more than that.
coming to the English league stand where there's some kind of adjustment needed. The season will be over before he's even started to feel himself in England. You know what I mean? Liga
He
MX.
does. He does look like a player that would need to settle in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Zaha drives, draws penalties and fouls, hustles hard. We're talking about a player who, in João Felix, who doesn't know the league. Well, here's a player in Zaha who does know the league. I believe we could get him for around 20 million.
Question: taking the fee out of it, if you could have only one out of Felix and Zaha, who would you take?
I would take Zaha out of those.
Why?
I think we would get more goals out of him. More goals, more assists, more end product out of him as well. You just imagine both players. Zaha is more dynamic.
Zaha, you'd think would be able to hit the ground running quicker, and I think that because of the way this season has gone for us, we're in a better position than we all thought that we would be when the season started.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a player that can hit the ground running. As I say, we ain't got time to experiment.
No.
Which is another reason why I'm a little bit worried about, using a Martinelli or an ESR, because there's a time of bedding into a new position. And I'm not sure that we've got, because of where we are in this season and the way that it's going, we ain't got time to experiment and fuck about with players and will it work or won't it work? We need to hit the ground running. So as much as I'm against Zaha for other reasons, I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? But he can play on the left. He has been playing through the middle, hasn't he, for Palace?
He has played through the middle in a transitional way. He scored a great goal at Liverpool, with putting Van Dijk sideways. You know what I mean?
There's something about him. He cries a lot, doesn't he? And I don't mean like physically tears running down his face, but you know what I mean. He's a bit whiny, isn't he?
Well, that's
whiny.
a little bit for the referee. He's trying to get himself freeze and decisions in his favor. Now, Gabriel Jesus was a player I didn't like very much for Manchester City when he was against Arsenal.
Didn't you?
Because he's a good player.
Oh.
And he had that will to win. Translate that to Wilfried Zaha. Wilfried Zaha's got that will to win as well. He's got that thing. He's got that desire to win.
How old is Wolf now? How old is he now? 29,
He's
30? Or?
Yeah, he's about 30, 29, 30. Are we really going to wait till he's 25, 26, still waiting for Eddie to come good? BX Gunner, I can give you an answer at the end of February. Do you think that's fair, Stan?
For what, Eddie?
For Eddie,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Valentine's Day will decide on Eddie. That's middle of February.
So what are you gonna wipe the slate clean and forget everything like up until now and just do it from then to then, or are you gonna take into account,
Well,
his other appearances? He's made a lot of appearances this season. So
I'm not.
how many goals has he scored so far this season in the league?
Oh, none in the league. Zero.
How many appearances? He's featured in nearly every game, right? Any assists?
I don't
Does he
think
have assists?
he's got some stats in the Europa League. He scored, I think, 2 goals in Europa League, and I think he actually scored against Brighton. So when we went out of the Carabao Cup, he's got 3 goals for the season, and they're in cups. There you
Don
go.
One says that he'd take Felix. He's a ceiling. His ceiling would be ridiculous under a good manager. And I get that as well.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why I like Felix. But as we just mentioned, because of where we are for this season, have we got time to fuck about with somebody bedding in and learning the intricacies? Do we,
Um,
because of where we are, right? We need to strike while the iron's hot. It's not like we're in fourth position
you know what?
or third.
I
We're
was
top.
just
We're top
thinking.
of the league.
I was just thinking this. I didn't even read it, Don Juan, but I'm thinking this. All of this could be moot. We could look back at this in the middle of February, end of February, and say, what were we worried about, Stan? Eddie. Eddie was banging in goals, As
It
Don
could
Juan
be,
says,
but
he bangs in
I
two
just
and
think that
goes
it's a
down.
wise man that has a contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is where we fucked up. We got rid of Aubameyang and we got rid of Lacazette. No matter what you think about either of those players individually or as a pair, they were gone. And we brought in one striker, and we brought in a striker that plays in a different kind of a way to some strikers. He has his own way of playing. Gabriel Jesus, he's not prolific. He's involved in goal contributions, but he's not prolific. And we got rid of 2 strikers and only brought in one that's not prolific.
Now, this
To
situation,
me, that, I mean, I always felt that we were shortchanged there. To me, and
okay,
again, I go back into, we bring in a player like Teabag, who that I love Teabag. Everybody knows that I love Teabag. But when I look at what we had and what we needed, that we could have been bringing in another forward,
yeah.
rather than another
This-
midfielder there. Do you know what I mean?
Here's the thing, Stan. Here's the thing. We forget maybe that we've done a lot of good things at the back, and we built this team from the bottom up, right? We got ourselves a goalkeeper, Ramsdale. We bought Ben White. We brought Saliba in. We've done some good things at fullback position. Whether you like Tomiyasu now or not, Kieran Tierney,
I love Tomiyasu.
Zinchenko. We've done some good things in midfield. We've done all of that now, but we didn't. We've sort of given Eddie.
We're only 3 players short of a winning squad.
Yeah, we've given Eddie. Arteta has given Eddie a really big vote of confidence.
Huge.
Because we couldn't, with all that we've done at the back and into midfield, Erdegaard signed, there was a big debate about Erdegaard. Should we sign him or should we not?
Steal
of the century, Real Madrid, stinging about that one still. We were not able to do a lot in terms of getting a bona fide striker. So we had to invest some money in Eddie. And I think we forget about all that. I think we forget about that because we've done so much good at the back and in midfield. We didn't have a ton of money up front, right?
The game's about goals, all right. At the end of the day, you got to
It's
score them
about
goals.
yes.
Got to score them goals,
And
and you got to not let any in.
Conceding goals, conceding goals.
Not got to let any in.
We stopped goals going in at the back.
We
have
said,
the best
didn't we?
defensive record, Stan. We have the
Let me
best
bring you back right to the beginning of the season on this broadcast, and we were talking about in pre-season and stuff when we bought our players, and we looked like that was the end of it. There was the late bid for Douglas Luiz that didn't work out, but that was the end of it. We weren't bringing anyone in. I'm sure that we all spoke, myself, you, Tony, Gary, a couple of the other lads. I'm sure that we all had a conversation about, okay, we done really well, but there's still a little bit to do. And I'm sure that we all said we know that we're going to continue this in January. I'm sure that we were all of the opinion that there was still a little bit more cash in the pot.
You're talking about last January?
No, this
This January.
January.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
that we were going back into the market this January, and I don't think that's changed. We were always going to go back into the market, and surely if we were talking in the summer about dipping back into the market in January, then surely now that we got to this position and we're top of the league, which we weren't then, and we've just lost a really important player, we're going back in to the market.
Yeah.
So, I mean, surely they've not been sat there with their arms folded when when Gabriel hurt his knee and they're waiting for the first, and then they've started putting feelers out already. I would imagine that Edu has started putting feelers out months ago.
Mm-hmm. As Stefan said, Arsenal got to make a statement of intent, signing early in the window, not leaving it late with silly money being spent. And
we ain't got time for that shit. We ain't got time for that shit because meanwhile, games are being played.
Yeah. Juventus are in the mud, maybe testing with a bid for Vlahovic. Not interested in Vlahovic. The player was not interested in coming here in the first place. I don't think Italian players settled really well.
I don't want him.
BX said, going to war second half, I want Zaha. Second half. It's not even second half of the season. I think we're 37% through the season. We have a big chunk. Just under.
We are only, in my eyes, we were only 3 players short of a great team. We need another player that can do what sort of look out for Thomas Partey when needed. We need another winger, ideally one that can play on either flank, and we need another forward.
Yeah.
3 players, and we'd be in a grand position. And you could maybe say 2 players if you got one for Thomas Partey, and you were lucky enough to find a forward player like a Marcus Thuram that can play anywhere across the middle.
Yeah. BX Gunner says
Marcus Thuram is my new Donny van der Beek. Remember how I was on him?
You do get sweet on certain players, yeah.
I do. Marcus Thuram is the latest. I've been looking at this guy, man, and he could be what we need.
Gary said Arsenal are having the best start of the Premier League ever, I believe. Strike iron while it's hot. Exactly. This start will be difficult to repeat, especially when playing Champions League. You're right, Gary. We are in a unique position. We have what you say is an advantage on players that are teams that are chasing us. I've told my nephew, you go win the Champions League. City can win the Champions League. We'll concentrate on the league this year. And maybe a bit tongue-in-cheek, but there are teams who have more difficult games than us out there, especially in Europe. We're going to wait till, I think, February 23rd till we get back into the Europa League because we have topped our group and we skipped that round of 32. Yeah. We're into the last 16. What our team does against Newcastle is vital. That Newcastle game will be huge, especially if they go in big with signings.
And again, who plays in the Europa League game if you've got Eddie working the league, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You can't just start shoving in a Martinelli and that because he may need rest from the league as well. So we will be active in this transfer market. I would put my house on it. I'd bet the wife on it that we're going to go into the league, the transfer market. I just don't know who or how we're going to, you know what I mean? How they're going to do it. If they're going to bring in the right people, the right positions, that's now down to Edu. No influence. We've got no influence over that. But there's no way that we're not going in. How can we not go into the market? The owners should be looking at this and be like, damn, this wasn't on the cards. You know, and if you're the manager, all you do is you just sit down with the owners and you explain to them about that season that Leicester won it. You just
and here we are again. Here we are again, Stan. We probably overachieved last season, coming into January last season. And what did we do? We thinned the squad out, and we didn't bring in a player. And I think Arteta must have looked at that in the summer and said, I get into this position again in January. I'm not going to thin the squad out. I'm going to look for the best players, 1 or 2 of the best players out there that I can get. Gary said, no tea bags on the team, Fabio or Vieira. LOL. We do
Can I
love
ask
it.
you a question though, right?
Yep.
Say we go into this transfer market and we bring in a midfielder and a wide player, and we bring Balogun back off loan. So we have Eddie trying to start as many games as he can, and you see Balogun maybe coming on 70 minutes to take up the slack in some games. You know, we see Balogun perhaps starting in the Europa League games with Eddie on the bench, and Eddie only coming on if really needed. Do you think we could get away with that? Do you know what I mean? Do you think we could get away with it? And do you think it would? And do you think it would? And it would be good for
So
Balogun?
have we brought in a wide player? We have
Yeah,
Eddie, we have Balogun,
yeah.
and
We
we have
brought in a
Mudrick.
we brought in a midfielder and a wide player,
Yeah,
and we bring
I
Balogun
think
off, and we bring Balogun back off loan.
I think that will be enough, Stan. I think that will be enough to get us through and to be competitive and win games. You know, Gary said we lost last season at the end because we couldn't score. Reason we need to buy in January. Exactly. Thunder Road is here. Welcome, Thunder Road. Who's this Jimenez you speak of?
And
And
let's
he's asking.
and let's
Yes,
be it.
my nephew does live in Ireland.
The next comment as well. One down BX is about Balogun. He says Balogun is scoring for a poor team. At Arsenal, he would eat very well. You know, he's scoring. He's in a good
yeah.
he's in a good vein of form.
So
Him and Eddie. There's nobody else. There's this the two. That he'd get minutes, man. He would get minutes.
listen, I'm not the one. I'm not one to talk about the French league as a farmers league, but it's definitely not as strong as the Premier League.
If you're Balogun and you're looking at the situation, would you want to stay where you are, or would you want to take up this scenario that I painted and have a chance of winning the league title with Arsenal? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
it's not like he's on the bench and ahead of him is Gabriel and Eddie.
I tend to
Do
agree
you know
with
what I
Gary.
mean?
Yeah,
And then he's on the bench, maybe getting a game in the Europa League.
yeah.
He would be getting minutes in the league
He'll be,
because
and
Eddie
there's an
can't do it
FA Cup.
all.
There's an FA Cup coming in as well.
Yeah.
No, Stan, don't slow Balogun's growth. Let him finish.
But would it be slowing his growth? It'd only be slowing his growth if we were bringing him back and he weren't. Do you know what I mean? He was like a third choice.
Yeah.
Coming back and being a second choice in rotation with Eddie. I mean, he'd be getting a lot of minutes, more than say Saliba did if we didn't send him out. I get what Gary's saying, but I think it would be he would get minutes, and he's getting the minutes in a better league with his home club. With an eye on a big prize at the end of it as well, right?
So your scenario, we bring in a midfielder, okay? Let's say for argument's sake, and I'll get Tony. Tony will have a chuckle of this, right? We bring in Tielemans in January, okay?
Or Danilo.
That's your midfielder sorted, right?
Or Danilo. That one's a big one going around. Yeah.
Yeah. Now your wide player, the most popular one being Mudrick right now, or Zaha.
Or Gakpo.
Or Gakpo. Well, how much would Gakpo cost us? 50, 60 million?
There was a point when it was around 40 million, but since that last quote, it might have gone up because he's been doing very well. I mean, he's the captain at Ajax. He's been involved in a lot of goals, and he's done very well at the World Cup as well, hasn't he? When I've been checking the scores, his name's been popping up.
Yeah, he has been finishing, and he finished in a couple of nice goals. One nice goal I did see in one of the group stages, I think. Okay, so Mudrick or Gakpo, let's say. And we have Eddie Nketiah. Is that the stopgap?
Sorry, PSV, not Ajax. Sorry, say again?
PSV. Is that the stopgap that we're looking for till Gabriel Jesus gets back? Do you think the club's thinking that way? A wide player or a striker?
A midfielder, a wide player, and then you maybe could bring Balogun back. It's an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an option.
Once you get chance and your confidence is good, he'll score in any league. That's Balogun, and referring to Balogun. We're really at a crossroads right now between Balogun and Nketiah, and this is two players that have always been sort of put side by side. Maybe Balogun's development is behind.
It's a bit Andy Cole and Kevin Keegan reminds me of that.
Yeah,
because we had Andy Cole in our ranks, didn't we? And we had Kevin Campbell two coming through the academy around about the same age and so forth. And we decided that we could only really keep one and we would let one go. My eyes, we kept the wrong one. Don't let me hear me say that over on the Highbury squad. But we kept Kevin Campbell, Super Kevin Campbell, and we got rid of Andy Cole. And sometimes that happens. You can't
But
afford to accommodate both.
also, we don't know if Andy Cole would have been prolific at Arsenal. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but you never know. Players can go to different teams. Look at Alexis Sanchez. He was dynamite for Arsenal. He went to United, and it didn't fit for him. It wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, but it was fucking done by then, wasn't he? Andy Cole was young, had the bit between his teeth.
No,
You know
he
what I'm
wasn't
saying?
done by then. We wanted
He
to
went to
keep
where did he go? Did he go?
There was
I think he
Ozil
went
and there
to.
was Sanchez. It went in January.
Didn't he go to one of the Bristol teams?
Who?
Andy Cole. He went out to one of the Bristol teams, tore it up, went to Newcastle.
Someone said, Kroenke to Arteta, do you think you can get top four with this current side? Arteta says, yes. Kroenke, okay. No more new signings are needed. This is my worry. Dom one, I hand on heart, I can tell you that Mikel Arteta is not going to say, oh, you can get top four. Yeah, you can get top four with this current side, but Arteta is going to say, top four, we want to win the league.
The Kroenke's franchises are winning, right?
Yeah,
they're getting a flavour for it. All of their franchises seem to be doing really well, and I'm sure that come on, I mean, I think the Arsenal project is kind of like Josh's, isn't it? I think Stan's let Josh take care of it, and Josh wants to do well.
We've played 14 games. We've won.
Josh
12.
is hungry, man. Josh wants to show his father that he's gonna, that when his old man pops his clogs, that the dynasty is going to be left in good hands. He's in that mode where he's, you want a rich father, a son. You want to prove yourself. You want to prove that you're just as good and that you don't need to bring in somebody else.
Mikel Arteta has his team top of the league, 5 points clear.
I like
14 games. We've won 12 and drawn 1. We've dropped 5 points out of 42. There's no way you can settle for top 4 in this situation. Now, we want a title challenge, right?
Pulisic. I see that name coming up a lot.
Which one? Zaha?
Pulisic.
Would Zaha, Tielemans, and Danilo leave anyone content? I'm 50-50. Zaha, Tielemans, and Danilo. Yeah, that's not bad either. Gapco going to United, that deal's nearly done. Gary's not happy with that done one. That scenario is unacceptable if it plays out
I thought Gakpo was going to Leeds. He was going to, is Manu a step up from Leeds? I don't know.
We could very well get Pulisic. Listen, Pulisic has played very well for the United States.
How old is he now?
He's probably 26, 27. Injury prone. I agree with this, Gary. He is injury prone.
I remember when they first signed him, I was like, I really liked him back at that time when he first went to Chelsea. But he's kind of blown hot and cold. And sometimes he reminds me of Danny Welbeck in that, you have these players that they're okay for your club team, but they seem to always find they find another gear when they play for their country. And they never seem to have that gear at the club. Pulisic reminds me a little bit of that. And he's a good age. He's 24. But when it comes to taking players from Chelsea, once bitten, twice shy.
Exactly.
KC,
Barry said KC won Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, and had a chance to win Premier League. What more of a hint do you need? Don Juan needs convincing about the Kroenkes. I'm still not buying what the Kroenkes are selling.
Let's talk about that.
In the light of other owners.
What is it that you want from your owners? What is it that you want from your owners?
These American owners are not the worst in the world.
I don't need Stan Kroenke to be sat in the director's box for every home match. I don't need that. I don't give a fuck about any of that. But since he's become a full-time shareholder, what he has done is put his hand in his pocket, whether it's come from money that we've, revenues or whatever. But Mikel Arteta hasn't gone wanting. He hasn't gone wanting. He spent about 200. He spent about, what is it, a quarter of a billion?
Close to 400 million.
Okay, there you go. 400 million, almost half is closer to half a billion in 3 years.
Yeah.
And you can whether he spent that money right or wrong is another conversation. But he's been given those funds. For me, the only black mark with the Cronkies was them flirting with the Super League, and they weren't the only ones. They weren't the instigators, but that was a black mark. But other than that, I don't know what it is that you want from our owners because, as I've said many a times on this broadcast, I never once heard a word come out of Abramovich's mouth. I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Yeah, he went to the games, but you didn't hear him. So I don't need that for my owners. I don't give a fuck if they're there every week. But what I do know is when it comes to the transfer market, that they support the manager,
Hmm.
and they seem to be doing that.
Yeah, and you know they're quiet. I think they're kind of quiet owners as well. And no
And hang on,
Americans, unless
Don
Yunus
Juan,
Musa,
Don
former
Don Juan
Conley product, don't want any bandwagon soccer fans.
Don Juan is right. I know that. I remember that comment. I didn't buy to win trophies, but you don't know the context of that
Yeah.
conversation. He could have been taking the piss. What you thought?
And
Well, I still
that
buy
was
trophies. You know what I mean? I think he likes
yeah,
trophies because look what he's done with all of his other franchises.
that was when that other the Russian
Uzumov
Uzumov was still in the
lurking.
picture, lurking. And if you got a partner you don't like, you're not going to invest money. You're not going to invest your money, maybe not hard earned money, into it. Yeah, so didn't buy you don't he didn't buy Arsenal to win trophies, but their track record shows that they do go for it. They do.
Somebody went to the Cronkies, right, and said to them, "We're going to break our club transfer fee record, and we're going to spend 72 million on Nicolas Pepe." Yes, we didn't pay for it all in one go, but the intent was there, and the owners turned around and they trusted the advice that they got. It didn't work out well, but they trusted the advice that they were given and went, "Yeah, let's go and do that. We can do that. We can afford to pay 72 over a period of whatever it was. Let's do it." So
Well,
they seem receptive.
mhm. Now let's address the 400 million because we did touch on that, Stan,
Yeah.
and the ownership have been amenable to spending money. That 400 million, that 400 million has gone into reinvesting, reinvigorating the whole squad. When people say Arsenal spent a huge amount of money, basically they've had to tear the team up, right, Stan, over the last 5 years.
The only duds that I can think of is Willian, which I think was under Mikel Arteta's watch,
Yeah,
and Cedric, and I'm not sure if Cedric even was under
Aubameyang
um,
extended
increasing
contract.
extending the Aubameyang contract, but then again, Mikel Arteta didn't know that once he did that the captain was going to start turning up late and doing whatever the fuck he wanted. You
This
know
comes off the back of winning the FA Cup, where
exactly.
Aubameyang scored two braces both in the semi-final
Yeah,
and in the final. You could say whatever you like about Aubameyang, and he wasn't a good character for the team, but single-handedly he kind of won the FA Cup for us.
and once the manager saw that Aubameyang wasn't going to start was no longer going to play ball, he addressed it very quickly. He didn't drag it out.
Yeah.
He gave him an opportunity to play his way back in, and he couldn't do that, and so he addressed that. So, but go on, the
So
400 million.
when people talk about that 400 million, that was changing from experienced journeymen, professional players who, in my opinion, had won things, had done well, coming to the end of their careers, and the fire was not in their bellies to win things. And we've changed that tact to going for younger players from the lower reaches of some of the Premier League and ambitious, hungry players, and players we have to probably come to terms with in the next couple of years will have to be sold to generate a profit.
Yeah, but I think we're in
You
a
know,
good place.
we are in a good place.
We're in a really good place. I don't see many players. actually getting sold from this squad. There's a Cedric that you could probably do
I mean,
something. You could probably
I'm going to
move
put
on.
forward a few players. Tavares, we need him to play a little bit better at Marseille to pump up his value a little bit. Lakonga possibly
Yeah, but
could
let's
help.
look at Tavares though. I mean,
Holding.
we've he's not in a his position isn't one that we're desperate for at left
No.
back. We seem to be covered there.
Yeah, but that's like a chunk.
Didn't
That's
cost us
some
a lot of
money we
money
can
though.
play.
Didn't cost us a lot, did he? Cost us very little money, I believe.
So if we get 15, 20 million for him, we're starting to now
Turn
turn
a profit.
profit on players, which we've been writing players' contracts off in recent years, and that's a corner we do need to turn. Don Juan said when an owner comes out and says, "I didn't buy Arsenal win trophies," that is damning. Yeah, listen, on the bare face of it, we have to agree with you, Don Juan. It's not something I can tell you. I didn't like to hear that. Stan, I'm sure, didn't like to hear that either. But there is
But
context.
there is context, and sometimes things will get taken. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I'm sure that if you went and sat down with Stan Kroenke now in the proper environment and conducted an interview with him, and then you brought that question into it, I don't think he would sit there and go, yeah. We have no interest in winning trophies. I don't think you would hear that.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think that if that was the case, that they would have backed the manager to the tune of 400 million.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think they would have done that.
They haven't only backed the manager; they actually have backed the manager himself as well. You know, nobody was happy. I don't know anyone that was jumping from the rooftop saying we've signed Mikel Arteta as
No,
manager. You know,
no.
nobody could have that foresight and say the manager of Arsenal is now Mikel Arteta, former, assistant coach to Pep Guardiola. Now, the credentials of Arteta lay within the managers he's worked with: David Moyes, Arsene Wenger, and Pep Guardiola.
Well, we had the opportunity to sign Mikel Arteta, but they decided to go with Unai Emery because he had a track record with teams of getting them elevated from the Europa League sort of level up to the next thing. So I get that.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out, and it was very quick. It was very quickly when we found that it was going to work. If you've got players that don't respect the manager and they do impressions of him behind his back and they mock him, and you got the managers saying, I want this player to play who plays on this side," and they say, "Okay," and they buy you a player that plays on the other side. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. They never trusted him.
Yeah, they didn't put the money behind Emery, which is kind of damning because Emery has a track record of winning things, albeit he's a little bit more cautious. Don Juan said, "Let's just say I trust Josh more than Stan," and that's completely understandable. Stan is completely silent. Josh has conducted interviews, and while he's not
The heir
everywhere,
apparent, isn't he?
he's not all over the place, and you want him to be silent. But Josh is saying just enough good things, right?
He's the heir apparent. I think when it comes to the UK side of their business and their investments, I think Josh has a better personality to touch base with the fans and I mean this in the right way than crusty old Stan. He's an older guy and he's probably more into his baseball and American football and those side of things, than than what we do here over here in England, and it works for me. I'm glad that he has that younger son to be his Prince of Wales. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense,
And I think structure wise, it's working as well with Josh.
Look
Stan
at the
May is
Glazers.
distracted, right?
Yeah, look at the
Yeah.
Glazers. Pair of old farts, Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And it's interesting, right? We've got two of the biggest clubs in England are now up for sale. Man United and Liverpool are up for sale. Again, from a strategic point, if you're the Cronkies looking at this, you're like, well, this is the time to reinforce our team because there's a lot of things are being changed around at those two clubs. Do they continue investing? Or do you sit back and think, well, we'll sort of like get into a holding formation, and then the next guys can come in and they can improve the squad. We just need to hold, just stay there or thereabouts.
Gary having a jab there. Crusty Young Stan, that's your name.
I wish I was
Oh,
young. I'm not, probably not far off Stan Kroenke's age.
uh,
But do you know what I mean? Though you're in a holding pattern, or do you keep, putting in the money that you would have? I
and
think
same with
Darwin Núñez is probably the last big signing you'll see at Liverpool. There will be other signings, but he's the last big money signing that you will
well,
see at Liverpool until
you
they get
don't know.
bought.
There could be a sports washing situation going to happen in Liverpool. You do not know about these things, and as football fans, we can only support our club, and we're very much powerless sometimes when it comes to the owners. But if you ask Manchester United fans, would they take the Cronkies? I think they'd probably take the Cronkies right now, switching from for the Glazers. You know what I mean? So as BX, we'll talk about another 10, 15 more minutes and then we'll get out of here, okay?
Yeah.
Arteta's humbled me as an irate fan who's been scarred more times over the years than I can count. That's a very interesting point, Stan, because we've been in the wilderness in terms of the title
Mm.
for 18 years now, right? 2004 was the last time. It'll be probably 19 years by the time 2023 kicks around. And we have been traumatized by some close near misses. We talked about Eduardo over 10 years ago and that injury. We talked about Olivier Giroud. Well, we didn't talk about it, but we know about the goal
That
drought.
Leicester season, yeah.
Yeah. So those are the two main ones in the last 19 years. Here we are, possibly, if we get into February, March, we're really close. We're a little bit ahead. We're not far behind. We're much further than we were maybe those two occasions.
I mean, I look at where we are now, and I think that we are probably in the best place that I have seen us since probably midway through Arsene Wenger's tenure. Because I've always felt that as much as I love Daddy Arsene, there's two sides to his tenure.
Mhm.
There was the golden years, and then there were the years where he was managing with handcuffs to keep us in a respectable position. But he done that whilst being handcuffed. There's a lot of changes going on.
Yeah,
So I'm not digging him out when I say that the second half of his tenure. But had he been continued to be backed in the same way, I think there would have been more from us. So I think that where we are right now, from what I'm seeing right now, is some of the best stuff I've seen since halfway through Wenger's tenure.
yeah.
And that's not to, you can't sneeze at that.
No, we are playing some fantastic football, Stan, and it's entertaining football. Maybe it's entertaining because we're winning, right? And it's infectious because we're winning. But I believe
Football's a team
we're
game, isn't
actually
it?
playing.
Football's a team
We
game,
actually
and we've got a
playing.
team right now. We have a team that care about each other's. They know that each person is the sum of their parts that make this one big organism.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And as much as I loved Alexis Sanchez, he was an individual.
Mhm. You
Ozil,
kind of
individual. You had too many individuals down the way now, and I think a lot of that is how the manager fosters the team.
Mhm.
And you would say that Arsene Wenger had an environment where he had certain favourites and certain players could maybe leave a little bit early or have the odd day off because of who they were. And Arsene would be like, well, if I do that, they'll look out for me on Saturday when it comes. And sometimes they wouldn't. And he would think, okay, maybe next week. We ain't got that situation anymore.
really the last 30
We
years.
ain't, we ain't, we ain't, we don't work in that environment now. Now
Yeah.
everybody needs to work every day.
Really the last 30 years. Arsenal in the 90s and at the turn of the century had players who were world class players and could police themselves. They were able to pump the desire from within their own hearts to go out onto the field and win games. And the
Yeah,
second part of Arsene Wenger's tenure was dismantling the Invincibles for economic reasons because Chelsea came on the scene and Abramovich came on the scene. We moved to the Emirates and we dismantled the team. And we didn't recruit the right kind of players. Those players were getting some free passes
yeah. They were
from we've actually ruined. This may be harsh, but we actually wasted Fabregas's best years. Maybe we wasted Robin van Persie's best years in those teams just to maintain a top four position for
Yeah,
20.
there were times when it almost felt like we were playing with three number 10s in the side.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah.
three number 10s in one team, and it was too technical but doing nothing. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot
And
of this little technical stuff going around, but there was nothing that was really
look,
the sharp end of stuff wasn't happening.
we,
You know, you
we
can't have a 10 on each wing and one in the middle. You
and
can't do that.
we have to say, with on the journey with Mikel Arteta, both of us were percentage wise swaying back and forth. We always backed the manager, but it went to 10 or 15% that we were in favor of the manager. You know, we never actually cut the cord. We never actually severed the cord where we're saying we got to jettison Mikel Arteta, but he hadn't made mistakes. But in hindsight now, I think the important thing, Stan, and we can look at other clubs and say the same thing, is stability. If you think you have the right manager, if you think you have the right personality at your club, you stick with him. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I'm 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 glad that we didn't do a knee jerk
Mm,
and move the manager on, because what happens when you bring in a new manager with new ideas, that the building that was already happening, it has to start again.
yeah.
And I look at Man United, and ever since Sir Alex Ferguson has not been their manager, they've always, it's like they're building this huge cathedral, and they keep changing architects, and it's not getting past the first level because the designs keep changing. You know what I mean? The intention is there, but the
You
designs and
build
the
something.
blueprints keep
Yeah,
changing. And we've gone from 3 spires to 2 spires, and now we're going to this and that, and and you're not actually
yeah,
getting the cathedral.
yeah. And look, it's lovely to see we're rivals
Yeah, I
in
love
those
it.
teams.
Love it.
We are not here to tell them to change anything, but the blueprint is there. They should look at Arsenal. They should look at maybe Liverpool, what they've been doing. Cazorla in this team instead of Odegaard would be levels.
And what
Uh,
we done was we stuck with one architect who had lots of different lumps of clay, and he chiseled a few things out along the way, and he had to go, nah, scrap those, get another lump of clay, and
yeah,
start again. Because as you
and
very rightly mentioned, he tried to bridge the gap by bringing in more experienced players that he thought would come in and be professionals, like Willian. And I'm not slagging Willian off, because at the end of the day, the guy left and ripped up his contract and then, milk us. But he brought in players that he thought he could get a little bit more out of. But the fact was that they were probably best past their sell by. They should have been out to graze a little bit, and he's ripped that up and he started again, and
Don
it's
Juan
working.
said, "Just make me owner of Arsenal. I would have Stan and Ray as co-managers and Tony as the water boy."
I don't know if I work well with others. My power has to be absolute.
And long may it continue at United. Que sera, sera. Mikel Arteta does not suffer fools. He's lived by high standards, and he's even as a player with Arsenal, he was a professional player, and by all accounts, he didn't. He did things right, and he wants his players to do things right. And the biggest thing, Stan, is he started to change the
Ethos.
culture, right,
Yeah.
at the club.
Yeah.
It was one of the first things he said in the first press conference, right?
And that's what needed to be changed.
Yeah,
We're not Arsenal with the soft underbelly anymore.
yeah.
If you go there and disrupt their game, then they ain't got fucking anything else, and you can get something out of it. Now we can adapt. We can change our rhythm and the way that we approach the game in game, where we couldn't. We only had one way of playing, and if you stopped us from playing that game, that was it until our next game. Now we can adapt in game. We've seen it.
Now, just to bring this thing full circle again, pun completely intended, I suppose. We can adapt. Mikel Arteta has players who can adapt. I think they can adapt within the game, and I think they can adapt when they don't have certain players in the team. And coming back to Gabriel Jesus now, I feel much more confident now in this team that we've seen in the last 3 or 4 months. We've seen signs of it even last season. And I think more than anything, injuries hurt us last season. A frail squad hurt us last season. We're much more robust. We've added Gabriel Jesus. We've added some mentality. I think he's injected something into the team. Sinchenko as well. And let's not forget Saliba, William Saliba. And we keep talking about these three players because they've added those parts that Matt talked about, sprinkling of stardust within the team.
Same with Gabriel Megalegs as well.
Yeah, and you know what? BX has said.
I love scoring goals for a
Teabag.
defender.
Yeah, Teabag is showing a very good left foot as well. So Fabio Vieira. And listen, we talked about Nketiah. Hasn't quite come off for him. But most of everything else that we have done the last 2 seasons has worked pretty well for us. Gary, thanks for being with us. Night, everyone. Take care. We'll be here for a few more minutes just to wrap things up. But yeah, listen, a lot of things that we have going for us this season leads me to believe that we can overcome Gabriel Jesus not being in the team for 2-3 months.
Because it's come at a time when we're able to dip into the market and get someone if needed.
Yeah.
It's not happened in between windows.
And the confidence is there, Stan, that we believe now in the club that they can identify the right kind of players. There's a track record there the last 2 seasons.
It's not only about identifying the right players. The right players now will look at what we're doing and go, yeah, I'll have some of that. Whereas maybe before they were a little bit like, I'm not so sure. Do you know what I mean? How long is this manager going to be here? Are they still rebuilding? Emery didn't last too long. What's going on over here? Now they can see a solid foundation and they can see that young players come into this team. And not only do they come into this team, there's a pathway.
Don Juan, some talks about Martinelli up front. What do you guys think? I'm not convinced by that, Don Juan, myself. I think the Eddie could solve the problem, but also I think we can get somebody in the market.
For me, it's something that I think we should be working on in the background, but to do nothing now where we are and the way that this season is, to do nothing now and say, yeah, Martinelli will just cover for Eddie would be convenient and lazy, because we have an opportunity now to win the league. So we can't, that changes what you're going to gamble.
There's so many things that tell me we got burned last January. We got burned by not doing anything. The club cannot not do anything.
They won't. They will do something.
So
they are going to.
I have confidence that will happen.
Like you said, Edu and Arteta didn't fly over there to go and watch an LA Rams game.
No, I don't think they were even. I did see Edu tuck it into the scram there. You know what I mean?
Edu was probably doing the barbecue for him.
He was having a little bit of food there. I saw a little bit of that.
He likes his nose bag.
Yeah. I'd like Eddie on the wing with Martinelli up front.
No.
That'd be a little bit different, BX, but that's changing. For me, that's changing two positions.
Two things, yeah.
And I don't think we can go there. Okay, so I think Mudryk really wants to come to Arsenal. I think that is something that is almost done. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was an Arsenal player first week of January.
Depends on the fee, doesn't it?
40.
It was a lot more than that before. So let's see.
Yeah.
I thought they wanted they were quoting double that. So
yeah.
Let's see how good our negotiators are. Let's see how good Edu's poker face is.
Yeah, so listen, it's unfortunate for Gabriel Jesus. Wanted to play with Brazil. He got a couple of games, but injured, had to come back. He's had the surgery. He's going to be out for 3 months. He's on crutches. We can't underestimate the impact Jesus has had on Arsenal up till now. But now it's time for another player to step forward. Whenever a player gets injured, it's an opportunity for another player to step forward, Stan.
It is. So let's see.
Yeah. And that player is Eddie
Edward.
Edward. um, Starting at home to West Ham. Listen, there's a lot of pointers, as we said, for him to do well. And one will be starting to play at home with 10 other first team players, and he can be the 11th. They better do something. I started to believe this season I can't deal with another season of heartbreak. Yeah, listen, that's true. We've got a unique opportunity to keep the good times rolling. And I wanted to mention even the Angel song. I know you hate it, but that's
Fucking
even
hell.
played. That's even played part of the whole mentality of the team and the supporters. Whether you like it or not, Stan, I like it,
I don't.
and that's one thing we disagree on. So that's okay. We're not all going to agree on things. But any final words, Stan, before we get out of here?
I just want to say to everyone, thank you for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to getting back into club football and seeing how this season pans out. But so far, so good. There's always going to be a couple of hurdles. Let's see how our manager and his staff handle these hurdles in the January window.
Yeah, and for me, and I think for most fans, the confidence is there that Edu and Arteta know what they're doing and will identify the correct players. It won't be easy in January, it never is. But if we're only asking for one or two players to come in and make a difference for us, and we're asking for really one player in particular to step forward, and that would be Eddie and Kedia. The table has been set, Eddie. Table has been set. Um, to fill in the next couple of weeks on Sundays, I think I will be doing some decades, 90s, Arsenal 90s and Arsenal in the 2000s. And that will bring us up nicely up to December 26th. So, with that, we will close this one out. It's been nice to chat with you, Stan. Get
Likewise.
back in the flow of it. We've been away for a couple of weeks, but now Arsenal, preseason part two has to start. And we'll see you on Sunday. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Cheers,
Do
everyone.
hit that subscribe, like, and share, all that good stuff before we get out of here. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on Sunday. Take care.
Good night.
Good night. Hold on a sec. I have to end the broadcast. There we go. Good night, everyone. See, I told you I was rusty.